Okay. All right. So yeah, like I mentioned, today we're talking about the empathizing stage in the design thinking process. So that's the first stage in the design thinking process. So from last week, we gathered that the the design thinking process is a five-stage process, um, going from empathizing to defining to ideating, then prototyping, and then testing. All right. So today we'll talk about empathizing, and then we go through weekly like that till we're done with the design thinking process, taking along a particular problem that we've already identified. All right. So how to empathize with users. So again, let me explain what empathy is. So empathy is our ability to see the world through the eyes of others, to see what they see, feel what they feel, and experience things the same way they do. And then that being said, it will be impossible. So it's stated over there. Of course, none of us can really experience things in the same way that someone else can, but we can try to get as close as possible by setting our own preconceived beliefs aside and focusing on understanding the ideas, thoughts, and needs of others. So what this basically means is we cannot, like, there's no way I can say maybe I understand the plights of someone, maybe a blind person or someone who has difficulty hearing. I might not be able to. I would need. It's not. I might not be able to. I wouldn't be able to understand what they feel, but I can come close to that feeling by empathizing with the person. Note that I'm not sympathizing. I'm empathizing, trying to understand how they do things, or how they might approach a particular problem they are faced with. And so again, like I mentioned last week, if all things were equal, it would be best if maybe if I was supposed to design something for an accountant, for instance, it would be best if an accountant actually designed it. But the thing is, there might be a lack. The accountant would lack the skill to actually do that, and so that is where my job as a product designer, or your job as a designer, comes in, where you solve the particular problem for that particular person. And so for the best case scenario would be that you make the person solve their own problem, but it's impossible because they lack the skill. All right. So the whole point of empathizing is trying to feel the way the person feels while they solve a particular problem or go through a particular problem. All right. So today we talk about how to empathize. Basically, over here there's a link to an article that explains it more vividly. So I'll share access to this file if you need it, and then you can go through it. You can actually go through the references that I used to create this. Basically, where I was getting the information to create this. All right. So again, I'll talk about some of the methods used to empathize. So one of the first one we talk about is assume the mindset of beginners, assume the beginner mindset. So what is assuming the beginner mindset? All right. So assuming the beginner mindset, this basically means like putting yourself in the situation of somebody who is completely new to the particular problem. So as designers, or as product designers, again, the design thinking process is used across multiple fields, right? So as you realize that it's used across multiple fields. So assuming the beginner mindset, that basically means trying to, when you build a particular product or you build something, you build it from the perspective of somebody who is completely new to it. So as product designers, or as designers, we already have experience in certain things, and so we might feel like maybe the person should be able to understand it intuitively, but that is not the case. And so you'd want to assume whatever problem you are solving from the lowest from the earliest possible user, like from their mindset. So again, the reason why we have pictures of cameras here is if I'd like to ask a question, how many of us have actually set our phone's camera, or have actually used the DSLR camera before? And then if you've used it before, can you share your experience? if you've used it before, can you share your experience? You can unmute yourself and then share your experience if you've used the DSLR camera or have changed your phone's camera to manual mode. Hello, guys.
Yeah, the question again.
So if you've used a camera, like a camera, like a Canon camera or a Sony camera, or if you've changed your phone camera to like a manual mode, can you like share insights on how it felt like, or if when you also let's just stick to a DSLR camera. If you've used a DSLR camera before for the first time, what was your experience like?
I have a DSL, and it can be fairly overwhelming because there's a lot of things that you have to change and consider, like ISO and lighting and aperture and what kind of effect you want, and sometimes you just kind of want to take a picture, but there's also this artistic aspect that you're supposed to be thinking about, and I tend to go with my mom who goes on wildlife trips, so you have to pick these quick moments and know all this stuff and have it ready to go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that information. Actually, that is exactly what I was looking for. If you've used the DSLR camera, like she mentioned, you'd have to set stuff like ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed, all of those things. And then if you don't know what those things are, those things sound very foreign, right? But the funny thing is, your phone camera actually has those features, but they are just covered with something called the auto mode, like automatic mode, which automatically sets those things based on what the camera is seeing. So if like a professional photographer, because I know professional photographers, and when their phones and their phone camera settings is always on manual, because with manual they have control of whatever image they want to take, right? But for someone who is a beginner, like most of us are, I remember the first time I got the opportunity to use a DSLR camera. All the images I took were either blurry or super dark, and then like it took about a week to be able to take a good enough shot. And even my phone still took better images than that, even though the camera could buy my phone, but I wasn't able to utilize it. So the point I'm driving at is, when you design for beginners, like with the DSLR camera, there's this thing called manual mode where you have to do all the settings yourself. But when you take a camera out of the box, majority of the time is set to auto mode, so that you can just point and shoot. So they do not bore you with all the nitty-gritties of what the complex camera is, because majority of professional photographers shoot in manual mode. No professional photographer I know shoots in auto mode. Majority of them shoot in manual mode, and then the camera is made for them. But then the creators of the camera found it to be best to actually have an automatic mode, so beginners can actually adapt to that camera. That is why your phone's camera is set to automatic mode in the beginning. You have to change it to manual mode. So that is assuming the beginner mindset. You should always assume the beginner mindset when you're building a product, because at every point, every other person, before like you start doing something, there's a point where the first time you did it, you were a beginner, you had to learn. And so you always assume the beginner mindset when you're building a particular product. So that is one way of assuming, of empathizing with users. That is assuming the beginner mindset. Once you put yourself in the beginner's shoes, you're able to create something that requires no set skills to actually do. All right. So moving on to the next way of empathizing is what, how, and why. So this basically is usually used in situations where they already have a set process that they use to do something. So maybe you are redesigning maybe an accounting feature, or maybe for something like Netflix, for instance. Prior to Netflix being Netflix, we used to rent CDs from DVD stores. Funny enough, we actually had those in Ghana. So that was the same thing. I know it's been the same thing. I haven't been to the States, but I know it's been the same thing in the States as well. I'm not sure for other parts of the world, but That is the situation between Ghana and then I'm using the United States as a reference because we get to like United States is like one of the most open countries, so you get to get information from there. So prior to Netflix being Netflix, people were getting before you watch a movie, you'd have to go and rent the movie. You either buy it or you rent a movie. I think that was Blockbuster, and so you use that to rent movies. Like you'd that was the problem they had at the time, and so using the what, how, and why procedure, you record how something happened. So in the past, before Netflix, before the advent of Netflix, people used to rent movies. That is the what happened in the past. Now, how are they doing it? So the way they used to do it is you either you go to the movie house and then you pick the CD, or I don't know if it's a cassette player. You pick it up and then you bring it back home. It might not it wouldn't be an enjoyable process as compared to now, because now you can just sit in your couch and then turn on your TV and then like you can just watch any show you want. Like there's Disney Plus, there's multiple streaming platforms that you could use. But in the past, you'd have to go to the movie house, get the movie you want to watch, pick a car, come back home, and then watch the movie. And then like when you're done, you had to return the disc. Now that wouldn't have been an enjoyable process. Now, I personally, when they used to rent our movies, I was just a little kid. I have not gone through the particular process, but I am guessing it was a very frustrating process, and so people most likely frowned when doing that. So, how are they doing what they are doing? Like, are they enjoying themselves while doing it? Are they frowning? Like, what mood are they in while they are doing what they are doing? And then once you collect the information on what the problem is and how they are doing it, you make an educated guess regarding the person's motivation and emotion that they used to do the particular thing. So again, let's using the Netflix analogy again. Netflix realized, okay, so this is what is happening. This is how they are doing what is happening. Why are they doing it the way they are doing it? And then once you make it why, then you find the solution and then you test. You test based on the why, like why is that happening? You test based on the why, and then once you test, you realize you find the solution that works out. So that is the what, how, and why way of empathizing. The next way of empathizing is interviews. So interviews is like one of the most common ones, I think. I believe because that is what I have used majority of the time, where I interview like people so people I'm working with. Interviews is actually one of the most popular ones. So with interviews is basically, I think we already know what interviews are. You ask somebody questions, and then the person gives you feedback based on the questions you've asked. So with interviews, the thing about interviews is they will yield only minimal results if you're not. Interviews will yield minimal results if you're not prepared to conduct it with genuine empathy. So what that statement means is interviewing yielding minimal results if you're not prepared to conduct it with genuine empathy. That means, I don't know whether you've seen this situation before, where an interviewer is interviewing somebody on TV and the person has a preconceived notion about the person. So that, I don't know, there's this video that went around, why are you gay? There's this why are you gay interview. It's quite popular. If you've already seen it, you guys like you can unmute yourself if you don't have background noise, so like we keep it interactive. So like the why are you gay meme, has anybody seen that?
Richmond, sorry, the why of what?
Why are you gay? There's this meme that was around, like why are you gay, where
Yeah, I know what.
yeah, exactly. So you clearly know the man already had a preconceived notion about the person, assuming the person was a gay person. Yeah. So once you
Exactly.
so once you're not ready to empathize with that particular person with your preconceived notions and ideas in your head, the interview becomes futile. Like it becomes useless because you are not listening to what the person is saying. And so with interviews, you need to be like being in the position to actually listen to what the person is saying. Because if you're not listening, if you're not ready to empathize with that particular user, with that particular person you're interviewing, you're wasting time, because like you wouldn't pick any information from that. Then another thing about interviews is majority of the work for interviews happen prior to actually interviewing the person. So you'd have to come up with pre-generated questions, like questions that you have to come up with questions, because if you're interviewing someone, you majority of the time you're not interviewing just a single person, you're interviewing multiple people, and so you'd want to have what's the term? You want to have the questions laid out before you actually ask the questions. Now, the thing about interviews is what question is relevant to ask the person, because there are multiple questions. There are multiple ends of questions that you could ask, and then you need to ask relevant questions. So this is where you actually ask the right questions. So you and your team would have to brainstorm and generate questions to ask the creator, to ask the end user around the theme or topic of the interview, so that the interview can run smoothly. So that is another way of actually empathizing with the end user. There's this one called engaging with extremes. So I remember just last 2 weeks, I'm in a book club where we actually reading a book called Well Designed, right? So there was this thing where somebody was talking about somebody asked a question about outliers. So outliers in your like when you present like a quantitative data, and then there are outliers. What do you do with them? And then I was of the notion that you ignore the extremes. Like that was what was in my head. You ignore the extremes. But upon further research, I realized you do not ignore the extremes. And I've actually experienced it, but I just didn't pay attention to it. So the extremes could be maybe everybody is actually agreeing to a particular thing, right? So everybody's agreeing to it, or saying, oh, it works perfectly fine. But then there's this outlier who says, this is what you've done is useless. It could be that the people who are agreeing to it, just do not have the balls to tell you what you're doing is useless. And so you have to engage with the extremes. So once you've identified the extremes, don't abandon them. Maybe set out a separate interview with them, and then understand why they have that extremist value of extremist observation, or extremist opinion of that particular problem, because they might be right. Even though they might be wrong, they might be right. There might be a reason why they are extremes. And so you do not ignore your extremes, but you actually try to understand why they are the extremes, right? The other one is the 5 whys. So the 5 whys is basically I couldn't get a deck on that particular one because I'll drop a video that explains that, but the 5 whys, it's basically a procedure that was developed by the Toyota Motor Company. So the 5 whys is a process where when a particular problem occurs, you ask why, and then once you get that first why, you ask another why. It sounds funny when I'm saying so many whys, but it's 5 whys, so I guess I have an extra element of 5 whys. But you ask another why the particular reason happened. Like, so you find the first solution, you find the first problem, you ask why the problem happened, and then once you find the reason why the problem happened, you ask why the problem on top happened again. So you ask why until you get to the bottom of the problem. So it's like you go to the hospital and then they perform a surgery, and then maybe you have a cancer cell. Yeah, they take it out, and then maybe they do not understand why the cancer cell generated or it grew. Once you they take it out and then they do not find the underlying cause of that particular cancer, the likelihood of you getting the cancer again is high, because the underlying cause of the cancer was not, you didn't cut off the head of the hydra, and so you the head grows back again. And so you always, the 5 whys is a step by step, it's a process of finding out why the particular problem occurred. So the same 5 why solution method of empathizing is the same procedure airlines use. So for when an airplane crashes, for example, when an airplane crashes, for example, I don't know whether you've paid attention to it, but they don't come out to tell you exactly what happened for the plane to crash. It usually takes about a year or two before any information is given as to why that particular plane crashed. So the reason why that takes so much time is, immediately a plane crashes, there's a team they call. Now this particular team would go to where the plane is, and I know you've heard of something called the black box and all of those things. But so what they do is they take that information and then try to go back, retrace every step as to what could have caused the problem, what could have caused the problem, what could have caused the problem. So they try to make sure they have covered every possible grounds of what caused the problem. So okay, so maybe I don't know anything about, I actually know a little bit about planes, but like it's not that great. So maybe I don't know. Actually, I know nothing about planes. Right, so maybe the landing gear was messed up or something. Why did the landing gear mess up? Then they realized maybe there's an electrical fault. Why was there an electrical fault? Then maybe they realized there's a leak somewhere that was causing sparks or something. Then why was that leak there? Then they go all the way through to the root cause of the particular problem. So if you've realized this, it takes a long time for a plane to crash. Like, plane crashes never happen. And even if a plane crash happens, how many people die? So like, I'm not saying the people who died are like their deaths are not valuable, but if you compare the number of people who die via aviation incidents and then automobile incidents like cars and stuff like that, you realize there are millions of people dying in car crashes, but when it comes to planes, in a year maybe 100, or sometimes neither. Because when was the last time a plane crashed? I think the last plane crash was in Africa. It was a Kenyan airline or something that crashed in Africa or something. And then prior to that, there was another one that crashed in Asia somewhere. I think the plane got missing or something. So it rarely happens. And when it does happen, they actually take their time to go through the process step by step. So once they have gone through the process step by step, they understand the problem to the root cause, and so they are able to clip that problem from happening again in the future. Again, like talking about how the five whys procedure was created by Toyota. If you've noticed this, the Toyota car brand is known as the most reliable car company in the world, one of the most reliable cars. The reason why they are the way they are is because they try to go to the root cause of the problem. So if something wasn't tied on properly in the factory, for instance, why wasn't it tied on properly? Then they go to, okay, maybe what they are fixing is not the same size. Why was the thing not the same size? Then they try to go down to the particular root cause of the problem. Once they hit the root cause of the problem, they are able to solve that particular problem. Once you solve the problem, you realize on the top, you no longer have a problem, basically. Like, you've clipped the problem from its root cause up onto the top. Another method we'll talk about is photo and video user-based studies. So with the photo and user-based studies, so for my final year project, we actually did this particular one. We actually did this too. So photo and video user-based studies, and then the personal photos and video journals. So they are sort of similar. The only difference is with the photo and user-based studies, you take your team as the product design team or the UX research team. You go to the place, the problem you're trying to solve, basically, like the people who are facing the problem you're trying to solve. You go there with a team, and then you observe them, but with video. So once you're observing them, the cool thing about video is you can play back. You can always go back and then watch your video again, and then you would catch certain things you missed. So if you've watched a lot of movies like I have, majority of the time when there's a crime that happens, somebody will watch the CCTV footage and wouldn't see anything. Then one guy will come from somewhere, watch it and like rewind that thing. So go back a little bit, again go back a little bit, and then like they figure it out. So like you realize once you have something, once you do something, once you go over something over and over and over again, like a video where you can play back, it gives you the opportunity to rewatch and then re-evaluate, relive the particular moment that the particular thing happened. So once you're able to do that, then you're able to understand the problem from the user's perspective. Again, that's empathizing, because you are entering the person's, basically trying to be the person, but it's impossible to be the person. So yeah, like you're just trying to be the person as much as possible. And then with the personal photos and video journals, basically give a phone. So you give a phone to the you give a camera, not a phone. You give a phone to the person who is solving the problem, and then you make them solve the problem. Now the thing about this, what you should be wary about personal photos and then video journals is, once you give the person the phone, the person the camera, I keep saying phone, I don't know why. Once you give the person the camera, the person's behavior or how they do the particular problem, there would be a change. They would be more cautious. They would try to do the right thing. But the thing the thing about behavior is, behavior always shines through. So even if the person is extra cautious, you would still see the problems they face. You still notice a pattern which would be able to help you solve that particular problem. So yeah, that is basically the processes involved in empathizing with the users. If there are any questions, please throw them at me. Hello, guys.
Hi. I have a question regarding the interview process.
Okay.
I've done a couple of interviews, and I have a little question every time it pops up. I think as an interview, you want to empathize, and make the person feel comfortable. Do you think it's a bad practice to tell personal experience when doing an interview?
Give personal experience. For the person giving you personal experience, or you giving the person personal experience?
You given, like, you ask a question and maybe he answered it or he hasn't answered it yet, and you tell personal experience trying to make the person more comfortable.
Oh yeah.
answering.
Yeah, definitely. You'd want to make the person more comfortable, because the more comfortable the person is, the more they would be able to give you their raw, unfiltered truth, basically. So like what you're trying to get is, you're trying to get the truth out of the person. Like, what is their particular problem? Like, it's not like you're interviewing the person because the person committed a crime, and so you just you just want to get the person comfortable, and then once the person is comfortable, like, you get the information you want to get. Yeah. Actually, that's great insight. Yeah, you need to make the person you're interviewing very comfortable. I remember when I was taking the Google course. For instance, I was taking the Google course because why not? They actually mentioned it in that you're supposed to make the interviewer the person you're interviewing. You're supposed to make the person feel comfortable. So give the person like drinks and stuff like that. But yeah.
But would you be concerned that they would may not give you the real question? I mean, the real answer at that point, because they would have figured out what you're looking for. Because in some other things they've said, uh, people are people pleasers. So if they figure out, like, if you're a designer, you want them to answer a certain way, they'll say yes. Like your previous thing, where 9 out of 10 people said, "Oh yeah, everything's great," because they didn't want to um, either insult you or lose affinity with you.
Yeah. So the thing about that is, with interviews, you don't ask open-ended questions. You don't ask questions that go like yes or no. So you'd want to ask questions that are you want to ask questions that allow the user to express themselves. Now, once somebody's expressing themselves, you don't want questions that give simple answers like yes or no. So I sort of have a hard time like talking. I used to have a hard time talking to girls, for instance. So, like, I used to take like watch videos on like how to actually talk to girls, and then one of the things they mention is when you're talking to a girl, don't ask her how are you, how was your don't ask her how was your day. Ask her something like, anything interesting happened today. Like, let the question be open, like, so that the chances of you getting a yes or no question is slimmed down. All right. So if you keep along, during our brainstorming sessions, we'll talk about some of these things. So like, it will be an entire process, and then we actually have a problem statement. So we'll go through the entire process. So like, for every week, we would actually have a session like this, and then talk about particular problem. So yeah. You want to ask questions that do not arrive at answers like yes or no.
And maybe I want to add some more points. So based on my past experience on interview, I added some disclaimer on when I first started the interview. So it's like I say to the person that I want to interview that it is okay about what you are going to say. I mean, like, it is okay to say yes or no, because it is okay about everything what you are going to answer. Yeah. We just want to know, and it is okay if you say no.
Okay, yeah, that's actually great. Yeah, actually, it's great. Yeah.
Just to make some disclaimer that it is okay, because there are some parts that are sensitive to some people, and yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's actually very great insight. Actually, I think actually that would actually even make them feel more comfortable, because they know they can
Yes,
say no to. Yeah, yeah.
yes, and they will feel more vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. All right, guys, please, any other questions?
Maybe I want to ask this one. Ask the 5 whys. I mean, like, how the way we have to ask, because I mean, like, it is harder if you just ask why. I mean, like, do you have other met I mean, like, the better way to ask, like, maybe not direct, like, why let's say we pick the topic is financial. Let's say someone that spend money more than he could afford. By the way, and how the way you ask why you do that things, because and then it seems negative, right, when someone spend more money than he can afford. How do you ask?
So with the question of
Why?
with the question of the why, it's not like a direct question to the person, like, why have you spent so much money? So like, it might be so for instance, with the example you gave, like, the person is spending more than they are saving, right? So you might ask this. So now you know the person is spending more than they're saving. Why you as a question you can ask yourself. The person might not be able to give you that insight. Why is this person spending more than they're saving? Then you might arrive at the point that maybe the person likes to shop or something. Then you ask, why does the person like to shop so much? So it's not a direct question you are asking the person. It's a question of like inward inflection or inward like looking into yourself, or basically you could ask someone if the person is available to actually answer that question, but it's like a process of getting down to the task, getting down to the particular problem. So if me like given the airplane situation, for instance, they are not asking anybody, because you cannot ask the plane, you cannot ask a crashed plane, why did you crash? So you check the particular thing, and then maybe there was a problem with maybe some circuitry or something. Why was there a problem with the circuitry? Then you trace your steps back into what might cause the circuitry to actually be faulty. So you trace your step back, and then you realize, oh, okay, there was maybe this fuel leakage, and then it caused a spark over here. Why did the fuel leak? You are not asking anybody, but you are just basically retracing your steps to see why the particular problem exists, or why the accident happened. So now, based on the 3 steps we've asked 3 whys. So from why did the plane crash, you realize the circuitry. Why did the wiring mess up? Then you realize maybe there was a fuel leakage that caused a spark, and then that bent the wire. Now, why did the fuel leak? Now you realize we are at our 4th why. Right? So the why question is not like something you might know. It's not necessarily something you want to ask someone. If the person is willing and able to answer those questions, perfect. But if the person is unable to answer those questions, then you look at it in a general point of view, like try to understand why the person is spending more. It could be that maybe the person is actually not making enough money. Maybe their salary, maybe their work does not pay them enough. So in Ghana, for instance, I can tell you that for a fact that a lot of people have a lot of people have the problem you're talking about, where they spend more than they make, primarily because the CD to dollar conversion at the moment, the CD to you need 7 CDs 50 pesos. That's 7.5. I don't know how to explain. I don't know whether you know what CD is, but 7 CD 50 pesos to get $1. But the thing is, majority of the stuff we use in Ghana are actually from America. So like me, for instance, I use a MacBook, I use an iPhone. Majority of my stuff are stuff that I purchase with dollar. And so you realize the salary they are paying me over here is not it might look like it's a lot, but when I convert it to dollar, it's not a lot. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, so like when you ask why, you get to the root cause of the problem. And then when you get to the root cause of the problem, once you fix the root cause of the problem, you realize it's like a ripple effect. The solution you get at the root cause would fix all the problems that existed. So that's basically the why question, the 5 whys. Yeah.
So you can directly just ask about, let's say, because let's say I spend a lot of money, and let's say I just like shopping. So we as an interviewer, we cannot directly ask like, oh, why do you like shopping? Because sometimes people just really like to shopping.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? All right, so if there are no other questions, I'd like to ask for feedback as to how the session was like, and then ways we could improve it. So like, because again, I'm quite new to organizing online sessions like this. So if there are ways to actually improve the sessions, and then because we plan on doing the entire design process with taking a product as an example. This is the problem that we have identified. Where's the problem? Oh shit. Where is this one? share. I think I mistakenly deleted a product. All right. Okay. Yeah. This is it. Yeah. So this is the selected problem that we've identified. Managing multiple clients as part of running a business as a business owner. However, sometimes clients don't pay on time. How do we help business owners keep track of payments for their clients and make sure that they receive payments from clients promptly for every project or business? So this is the particular problem that we have identified. So we just finished the empathize stage. Wow, I spelled this wrongly. Empathize stage. So we're going on to the next stage. That's the define stage. And so I think it's a good thing that we already have the problem, so we can actually define the problem and then use the steps we have identified from the empathize stage to actually do the definition of the problem that we have identified. And so so like if you have any feedback on ways we can actually improve the sessions, I'm willing to listen to it and then actually take the input and then improve.
Hi, Richmond.
Yeah, hello.
I was gonna say that I love the talk. I really love the examples. I think they were really talking of experience. Like you were talking about things that I knew and I could relate. So I love that. And the simple way you express yourself. I think the only thing I would add, and you already talked about, is creating or making a real example with us on real time. I think that's the only thing that it will be like a cherry on top of the presentation.
All right, that's awesome. Thanks for that. Thanks for the feedback. All right. Please, any other?
Hi, Richmond.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Richmond.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Alright. Sorry, I came into the class late,
Oh, okay.
but I just asked a couple of questions. I'm just starting as a UX designer. I've been taking some couple of courses online from LinkedIn and Google UX courses.
All right.
But right now, I'm kind of stuck because I think I need to get something going to show for what I've been learning so far. So I don't know where to move on, how to move on with that.
Oh, okay. So the best thing you can do is find a dummy project. So there are platforms that can actually give you like project briefs. If you don't have any, you can actually use this particular problem statement. It's not a problem. It's not developed into a problem statement. It's just a problem. You can use this particular problem to try your hands on it, and then you can share. Again, I forgot to mention, but we have a WhatsApp community where we actually we are able to share news on background noise.
Yeah, I'm on the WhatsApp community, XID.
Yes. So there's a WhatsApp community where you can share. You get to actually ask people from product designers that are already established, and then mind you, one of the ADP list co-founders is actually in the group, and so there are like people who actually have a lot more experience than I do that are in the group that can actually give you context. Wait, there's a lot of background noise. Let me just do this. Okay, yeah, great. You muted yourself. Okay, so there are a lot of people in the community that can actually give you more feedback, better feedback than I can give you, and so feel free, work on stuff, share your stuff. Like, don't work in isolation, and then feel free. And another thing, copy people. Like, when you see something that looks good, copy it. Like, I don't know whether anybody has said this to you, or like great artists or great people are actually thieves. Like, they steal stuff all the time. So like, feel free and then steal whatever you want to steal. I mean, with moderation, of course. Yeah, so like feel free, like go to Dribble. Like I don't know whether let me share this. Nothing. Let me share this. So I have a folder called this right in Figma, right, and then I just take like what I think is cool and then I replicate it. So I take something off Dribble and I redo it in here, like still as much as possible. Like I mean, but when you still don't make the person like, well, they say stealing is the greatest form of flattery, and so when you steal from a designer, they know that what they did is actually good. So this is a website created by this website actually just got how you call it, a nomination on awards. So this is the actual website. This is the website. So I use the cloning to take the design from here, to take a snapshot of the website, and I try to replicate the same design just to understand how it's working. I do that majority of the time. Like this is a platform that is designed. I took this design off Dribble. I think this off Dribble, and I'm trying to replicate it because I feel like the person is ahead of me, and so like once the person is ahead of me, they definitely know something I do not know, and so like take people's designs, redo them. But this one like this, I know I cannot share, and so I've not shared because it's not my original idea. And so this is just a learning moment for me. So like learn, like practice a lot. So once you practice, you get the confidence to actually work on real projects. And then once you get your first gig, that's it. You're rolling. All right. So any other questions, please? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you share projects like just like you just said, you can replicate other people's projects, right?
Come again?
You said we can replicate other people's projects.
Yes.
So can you share that? Or when sharing it, you need to add a disclaimer or something.
So when you take somebody's work, that's when you do the same thing as what somebody has done, that's plagiarism. And then like you don't want to plagiarize, so you can use theirs as practice, and then so the way you prevent plagiarism is referencing, right? So if I copy you, I will just say I copied this person. So people do it all the time where they talk about how people do it all the time where they talk about how they replicated maybe WhatsApp, or they replicated Twitter. Once you said that you replicated WhatsApp, you've referenced. That means you haven't plagiarized, and so that is the only way to prevent stuff like stealing. But again, like there's something called. So let me show you something, right? So this isn't my personal website. No, not this one. So this is the design for my personal website. Yeah. Now, if you look over here, you realize there are multiple references, right? Multiple references. I had an idea of what I wanted to build. I want to take references to see how people are building the design style that I want to have. But you definitely can tell none of these is the same as what I have. And so none of these designs can actually tell me I've plagiarized their design, because again, this design style is called Swiss design style, and it's something that's is already existing. It's already in existence, and so nobody owns it technically. And so it's just a design style. I just took these ones and then used them as a reference point to create my personal website. So this almost every designer I know does this. Almost every designer does this, where they take reference inspiration. So these things are called inspirations. Basically, you take inspirations from these ones and then you build based on that. All right.
Okay, so I have a question. So with what you are saying, are you trying to say that the work or the designs we make, like we have intellectual we own them, like they are copyrighted or what?
The designs you make yourself.
Yeah, or like the designs people make and post like on behinds and Dribble and stuff, like Is it copyrighted?
Once you've not signed any copyright agreement, it's not copyrighted. But it's just
To just like because of ethics, that's why
yeah,
you can't
ethics.
use
Yeah,
it.
ethics. So if you copy somebody, just say you copied the person, like because imagine if somebody copied you directly. If you are not like I remember I used to do graphic design before I started product design. I remember I did one design for one guy who was running for like a position on campus, and I realized somebody tried to copy the same exact thing, but the person didn't do it well. I was happy, but some of my friends were angry because they're like, "Why is the guy copying you?" But me in my head, I'm like, "Yo, this is cool because he thinks my work is so cool. He's copying me." Some people won't take it that way. So for ethics' sake, just say, "Oh, you copied this from here or something like." Just like how when you download a free image of free pic, they tell you to how you call it is it reference? I forgot what it's called. Well, like they ask you to give credit. Yeah, you give credit to you attribute the image, even though it's free. Just attribute the person. You're like, yo, what's up? I use your image for this. Like, yeah, that's just cool. Like, so like if you want to take somebody's design, just reference the person and like, oh, I copied this person from here, and you're good. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Like you're just learning.
Okay, so let's say you're like so you are doing like personal projects and you're copying from people, and you're like posting your portfolio, website or anything. Like so you added that you took this image from here and like you add everything, like anything that you took from someone, you have to reference that oh you took this image from
No. That is not what I mean. So like you see there's something like when you copy something direct dito. But once you write the article and then you change something, mind you, there's nothing new under the sun. Everybody has used almost every color that exists. Like you can take things from different places and bring them together. Once you bring them together, that is your work. It's your intellectual. Like you took this, you took that, you took that. The person who did that also took something from somewhere. And so once it's not the same exact thing, it's yours. But once it's the same, once you've copied somebody's work, like you copy the work, so anybody who sees it knows that this is that is that. Like that's you just need to attribute to the person. But if you haven't copied anybody, like you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get to know.
Yeah.
So can I say something? Add up here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys if you downloaded any picture from free pic or is it Five Icon or something? Normally, if you are about to download the picture, if it's free, they will tell you that they will send you a link and tell you to reference the person, maybe give a person a shout out, so that anyone who sees your work will know that this picture is from this gentleman or this gentleman made this icon or stuff. So that's basically what we are trying to do. So if you are using a design from someone, you just reference the person. But as Richmond said, if you tweak it or add a little stuff out there, then it becomes yours. So that one you don't need to reference. But then if you are using it directly, then you definitely need to reference the person. You get it.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. So, are there any other questions, please? Hello, guys. All right. So,
Yeah, and my last question is that see the platform that you're supposed to register for the meeting from. I don't see any link that directs you to join this meeting.
there's a link.
But I never find a link.
Yeah, I'll go and tell the person who designed the platform. But there's a link. I guess maybe you're not finding it. But once you RSVP, there's join session, and then you join the session.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So either way, I guess I'll start posting the link in the group. I just want you guys to register via the ADP list. So like we are able to keep track of the people who actually join the sessions. That's basically why we want to use the ADP list.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So if there are no questions, I think let me drop a link to this folder. so that like you can get access to all the stuff here. Copy link. Dropping a link to the folder over here, so you can access it, and then oh, thanks, Regina. I'm not seeing the stuff you sent. Yeah, Simrat. I hope I'm mentioning your name wrong. Great artist copy. Good artist copy. Great artist still. Pablo Picasso. Exactly that. Yes. That's actually where I learned that this particular saying. I think when I was struggling with design, I was looking at how to actually how to actually get designs, and that's one of the quotes I saw that actually inspired me. Yeah. All right. So if there are no questions, we would end today's session over here, and then we'll continue next week with the defined stage. And so if you can actually do some research, if you want to read extra stuff, there are links to the file. There are links to platforms that have like given more information on the stuff that I presented today. So yeah, if there are no other questions, bye bye for today. I'll speak to you guys again next week. All right, bye. All right, bye.